Hey, it's Amanda Vaden. Thanks for listening to the Rory Vaden Show podcast. Did you know that the principles shared by Rory in this podcast are part of our Southwestern Consulting Top Producers Edge coaching curriculum? If you're curious about how having a business or sales coach might improve your life, please visit roryvadenblog.com and click on the accountability coaching session on the right side to register for a free call with one of our certified coaches. Again, that's roryvadenblog.com and click on accountability coaching to sign up for your free call. We hope to talk to you soon.
From Nashville, Tennessee, it's the Rory Vaden Show. This is the place where we share insights and inspiration for movers and shakers in the world of business. Our goal is to help you increase your self-discipline, overcome procrastination, and help you to do the things you know you should be doing, even when you don't feel like doing them. I'm your host, Rory Vaden, co-founder of Southwestern Consulting, self-discipline strategist, and New York Times best-selling author of Take the Stairs. Well, it is a special moment for me today and for our team at Southwestern Consulting. I am holding in my hand the very first copy of Procrastinate on Purpose, our brand new book. This, of course, is the pre-released limited edition galley copy of the book. It's an advanced reader copy, and it only comes, there's only 4,000 of these that will ever be printed, and we just got them. So the official book doesn't launch until January 6th. That's when the hardcover comes out and it can be shipped. But the galley copy is basically the book. You know, it's just a paperback version of the book, and we have them in hand, which means that this commences the official start date for our pre-launch sales for the book, which is so exciting. And there's two ways that you can get plugged into this. And there is one way that you can actually get your hands on a copy of this galley. So you can get the book now in paperback before it comes out. So the two ways that you can help is, one, I shared this last week on the show. If you run a company or have a company or are part of association or any sort of list, anybody that has a list of about 2,000 or more email addresses, and you want to host a custom branded webinar, that is something that for a limited time we are offering for free. And I will do a custom branded webinar. It's like an hour-long training on all of the content from the new book. And so if you want to get information for that, you can email info@roryvaden.com, and someone from our team will connect with you about setting you up with a webinar that you host, and we team up together. But it's your branding, and it makes it something special for your list. But the other thing is that if you are just interested in getting a copy of the book or in viewing that webinar, part of our strategy for the launch is to do something really special. We are doing a free webinars is what we're offering. So people get a chance to learn a little bit about the book, learn a bit about the research and the content that our team has done and put together over the last 3 years about overcoming priority dilution, how to gain more peace, how to multiply your time. And that is live and it is available. And so it's completely free. And grab a pen, you'll want to jot this website down. If you go to register.procrastinateonpurpose.com, that's register.procrastinateonpurpose.com. You can go through there and just put in your name and email address, and we will immediately email you the link to click on so that you can participate in the free webinar, a 1-hour training, and go through that. And at the end of that training, there's going to be a special offer, a very limited time thing that we're doing between now and the launch date, where you can pre-order your copy of Procrastinate on Purpose, and even more powerfully, if you're in the first 4,000 people, get one of these galley copies shipped to you today, right away, and have it in your possession. So that's pretty exciting stuff. And there's one of the reasons I wanted to talk through that with you is because one of the most popular or common questions that I seem to get these days is people say all the time, they say, Rory, I have an idea for a book. How do I get started writing a book? Now, even if you don't have that desire, there's a valuable lesson to be learned from this. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about this because it is true. It's kind of funny, here I'm holding this, my second commercially published book. The new book, of course, is called Procrastinate on Purpose, 5 Permissions to Multiply Your Time. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that as the weeks go on. But it's actually the 11th nonfiction product that I've helped publish. Second commercial book. And so the way that you start writing a book, at least a nonfiction book, is valuable even if you never planned to be an author. There's a really good lesson in this because it's the same way that you start writing a speech. It's also the same way that you ever really create like a marketing material. It's the same thing that I would ever think of before I was going to introduce somebody and introduce myself to somebody that I was meeting on a plane. And that is, you start by boiling it down to one simple message. What is your message? What is the one thing that you want people to remember? And more directly, the message of any book or speech or article or radio interview that you ever do, or any kind of interview or elevator pitch that you give, is really simple. The message is, what do you want people to think, feel, or do differently when they are done? In this case, what is the thing that you want people to think, feel, or do differently when they are done reading your book? And crafting a compelling message and a clear message in one sentence is both the most difficult part of writing a book and also the most significant. The message of your book in one sentence becomes the ultimate litmus test and the judge that determines what else you allow to be in your book and what must be thrown out. So you cannot allow yourself to have a story, an anecdote, a fact, or commentary in your book that doesn't directly forward your message. And that is the number one mistake that most nonfiction authors make. And that is that they want to write a book to tell people everything they know about everything. Instead, what comes out is something that is disorganized, it's uncohesive, and it's not to mention it's unoriginal and not thought-provoking. And yet, on the other hand, when you have one singular message that you're fighting for, that you're advancing, then it causes you to think deeply about the things that you can say that will inspire your readers to take action on whatever is that new singular belief. And that level of specificity forces you to portray your argument in a way that forwards the thinking of what has already been written on a topic. Conversely, when you're writing a book about everything that you know, you simply say a little about a lot instead of a lot about a little. And therein is one of the key distinctions between great writers who forward the thinking and those who simply rehash, reposition, and recycle the same old stuff. And that applies the same principle of boiling it down to one sentence. For me right now, it's really relevant because we have this new book, and I can tell you in one sentence what the book is about. I can tell you the premise of the whole thing. I can tell you that for any article that I ever write, or for any speech that I ever write, or any interview. And if I'm going to stand up at a networking meeting, it's like I want people to remember, what's the one thing that I want people to remember? So what is your message? What is it that you want your readers to think, feel, or do differently when they are done as a result of reading your book, or hearing you talk, or reading your marketing material? What is the singular thought that you are proposing as a premise that forwards the thinking of what already exists in your area of study? What is the one simple belief that you are hoping to change for the audience that you are serving? My advice is that you start there, or you don't bother starting at all. And as I mentioned earlier, today begins our formal pre-launch for the new book. And so one of the things that I'm doing on the blog and probably here on the podcast is, now that the writing is complete, I'm thinking it's going to be fun to kind of walk you through transparently the journey of everything that we are doing as part of the launch. Because so rather than telling you how we do marketing or just telling you like some of our plans and some of our philosophies, we're going to be able to show you because we're doing it right for the next few months. And of course, that webinar that we're doing, the free webinar at register.procrastinateonpurpose.com is a big part of our strategy. We're giving something of value away for free as a way of introducing ourselves and earning trust from people who maybe don't know us, and it gives them a way to sample what we have to offer in the full book. But it's a detailed training, and that's one of the great pieces of marketing. It's one of the best principles that you can do, right? Is give stuff away for free. That's why we do the podcast. That's why we do this blog. And so I want to encourage you, if you have any desire or interest in being an author, now or someday in the future, I encourage you to definitely go to roryvadenblog.com and get plugged in there and start paying attention, because I'm going to be writing a lot about that as we're doing our launch. And so, I'll share with you what I know, and I'll give it to you for free. And all I ask for you or from you is that you help us share the message about the new book and all the various things that you invite people to listen in and tune in, because that's what we want to do, is reach more people and help more people achieve their goals in life. And that's what we do at Southwestern Consulting. So sound like a deal? Hopefully it does. And right in the same vein, I have an incredible guest for you to listen to. This gentleman was just recently crowned the world champion of public speaking. And he's fabulous. I want to apologize in advance. The recording is just a little bit shaky, and that is because my new friend Dananjaya is in Sri Lanka, and so it's hard to get a real strong connection. We did our best though, and it's pretty solid. So, but it's a little bit shaky, but I think you'll enjoy it. It's definitely worth the listen. So, in the vein of creating a positive message and giving away content, here is my interview with the 2014 world champion of public speaking. He is my new friend, and he is the brand new 2014 world champion. That's right, world champion of public speaking for Toastmasters International. And I might mess up his name. I'm going to do my best. I've been practicing. Dananjaya Hettiarachchi. Dananjaya is awesome. He's a TEDx speaker and is among a handful of human resource development consultants in the Asia Pacific region that specializes in performance prediction. And most of his work focuses on strategic planning, index-based human resources development infrastructure, and rapid competency development to enhance organizational service delivery capabilities. Dananjaya holds an MBA in business administration and a bachelor's degree with a double major in marketing and management. And he is a chartered marketer and holds a professional diploma from the Chartered Institute of Marketing from the UK. Dananjaya, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, Rory. It's an absolute pleasure to be on board, friend.
Yeah, well, I already told you this, but I've seen lots of years of world champions, and I'm not always impressed, but you really captured me. Your speech, I see something in you. I see something in you. AJ is so...
But I don't know what it is.
But I don't know what it is. Oh, what a great catchphrase. And I'll post it on my blog, the little video segment, so that people can hear. But can you just tell us, we had Ryan Avery on the show a few months ago, and so some people know my background in the World Championship, but can you just talk to us a little bit about what is it like competing at the World Championship of public speaking?
Well, it's amazing. It's an amazing experience. It's more amazing because I come from South Asia. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at the World Championship, the past 75 years of World Championship, there isn't anybody from Asia. So for us, people from this side of the world taking part And stepping onto that stage is massive. It's huge. Because where I come from, English is our third language. We've got two national languages ahead of English. So it's amazing, exhilarating, and sometimes fearful experience. But all in all, it's a dream come true.
That's awesome. And I want to apologize to those of you that are listening. It's going to be a little fuzzy because Dananjaya is in Sri Lanka, and so we're catching him on Skype, but he's just so awesome, and he has such a big heart and just an amazing speaker, and his speech was just fantastic. So let me ask you this question. What's the hardest part? What do you think is the hardest part of being in the contest specifically?
I think the hardest part for me throughout the years was just being comfortable with who I am. Mm-hmm. I think for a long time, I wanted to emulate speakers from the West because I thought that was the way to win the world championship. Uh-huh. But for me, I actually discovered my moment of glory when I decided to stop competing and just start being myself. And that was the hardest part. As I told in another interview, I think it took me 10 years just to be myself on stage. And wow. That was the hardest part for me.
Wow. There's two parts of that. One is the moment you stop competing with other people and you just focus on competing with yourself and being yourself. And the other one is being on stage so many times or presenting or doing whatever it is you do, whether you're listening and you're not a speaker. It's like just doing whatever you do so many times that you can finally settle in and figure out who you really are.
That's right.
That is really powerful. So how many times had you entered the contest before? I'm just curious.
Well, I started competing in 2006 when Toastmasters here we weren't even a district. We were a territorial council. And we got eligibility to compete in the World Championship somewhere around 2009 and 2010.
Oh, okay.
So I've been competing in regional contests every year since 2005, 2006. But I've been at the semifinals 3 times. That was in 2011, 2012, 2013, and this was my 4th year coming to the international convention.
Wow. Yeah, I know it is a tough thing. I mean, it's over 30,000 contestants. You go through these 6 rounds of contests and competing. Of course, I did it. I went to the World Championship twice in 2006 and lost. In 2007, went back. And if you're not familiar, if you ever get a chance to go to the Toastmasters International Convention and watch the World Championship, it's amazing. And it's usually, very close and really competitive. And this year it was also, there were several really good speeches. And when you came out with your speech, I see something in you. I mean, it just kept getting better and better and better. Where did the speech come from? What's this like? Just tell us a little bit about how did you develop the speech and when did you start to tell that story?
Right. Okay, the first cut of the speech I did it a year ago at a TEDx speech, and that was about 20 minutes. Now, what I wanted to give to the audience was, well, there are some people in life that can't figure out what they're good at by themselves. Now, there could be people out there who could do this, but then there's a separate group of people that really can't do it. And I fell into that category. So if you look at my life, I think every achievement that I've achieved in my adult life has been because of the influence of others. And whenever I wanted to give up, they just stepped in and made me not make that decision. So for the TEDx conference, it was about the power of association, how when you associate the right people, you can achieve great things in life. Now, this was a year ago. Mm-hmm. I knew I had a great speech because I did this speech in schools, I did it for children, and I did it for universities, and it got a great response. So back, when I was a year ago, when this really came out, I wanted to make this into a 5-7 minute speech. It took me a year to do that.
Wow.
And finally, after about a year of cutting, chopping, and doing it about, 100, 200 times at different, I first brought it down into 15 seconds, then brought it down into 10, and it took me about 6 months to bring it down from 10 to 6.5, 7 minutes. So I started a year ago, and this has been a year-long process for me.
I think that there's such a great lesson in that, especially for speakers. David Brooks was one of my mentors, and he said, you tell the audience every single word they need to know and not a word more. When I studied comedy, they used to say a laugh is inversely proportionate to the number of words it takes to get there. But even outside of the tips in the discipline of cutting a speech, just that process, I don't think people realize the process of elimination just in your life. Like you do that successful people do the same thing with their life. They're looking at all of the tasks they're doing, and there's just this radical focus to what can I edit out? And that's where we create, there's beauty in what's left. It's like, what can you remove? There's an old French painter who says that perfection is not only when nothing more can be added, but when nothing more can be taken away. And when I think about going from 20 minutes, taking a year to get a speech from 20 minutes down to 7, most people they don't realize how much work and how difficult that is.
I think you're perfectly right. And the challenge is complicated more because in this part of the world, we speak generally faster than the West. We speak at about 165 words per minute, whereas the international speech has to be somewhere around 130, 135. It just complicates it even more. It's not just about cutting back, it's about also slowing down what you are saying. So you have to really pick the most impactful sentences, words, because you need to not only cut back, but you got to take more time to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember learning that you want to, some words you can replace with gestures or facial expressions, and it helps you cut words because you can add so much more. So did you have a process? Like, just what's the process you go through? Because I think there's so much value in this skill of editing. There's another old thing that Darren LaCroix used to say that in humor, like great lines aren't written, they're rewritten. And just understand the discipline of cutting down. What advice do you have, or what kind of process do you go through to really hone in on what the most substantial or critical part is?
Right. Well, what I always do is, a lot of speakers start their speech with a title or a topic. I always start with my message. And what I do is I take a lot of time on the message. So what I normally do is when I first write my message, it comes to about 2-3 lines. And I just sit on it, and I try to bring it down into 10 words. And once I got my message down into 10 words, I have 2 principles. A, it has to be simple. B, it has to be inspirational. So until I get that phrase right, I don't concentrate about anything else. I just concentrate about, what's my short and inspirational message? And then what I do is I start to layer that message with stories that I feel really, add value to that message. And then it's about building upwards from that message. So that's the process I actually take when I develop a speech.
I love that. And it's like the ultimate speaking tip. For any presentation is don't write a presentation, write a message and figure out what do you want the audience to think, feel, or do when they are done. And people like you and anyone who's really competed at the World Championship, it's like one of the the major skills and things that we learn. And then the message becomes the ultimate litmus test by which you test which things are allowed in the speech and which things must be thrown out. And I think that's the same. It's the same that with any business or with anybody's calendar or life, as you figure out, okay, what is my ultimate priority? And then you have to have that so that you have a basis by which to evaluate what things you allow in and which things that you allow out in a speech. Or if it's the same thing when people are writing books, they say, okay, Rory, so okay, now I've been a speaker, how do I write a book? And it's the same thing. It's your whole book has to be boiled down into one sentence. It's like before you do an outline or anything else, it's like, what is the thing that you want people to think, feel, or do when they are done? So it sounds like that's something that you do. While we're on the topic here of just kind of presentation skills, what are some of the other? Were there any big lessons that you learned in terms of like specific practical presentation skills this year on your journey back?
Well, yes. I think there were 3 major lessons that I've learned, this year. The first is repetition. I wasn't a very big fan of repetition. But this year, through this speech, something that I've learned is that I consciously try to position my message, my key phrase, at least 3 times within the speech. So I say it once, I say it twice, and the 3rd time, before I say it, the audience has finished saying it.
Mm-hmm.
So I actively get the audience's subconscious involvement into my speech. So that's something that I tried out this year, and it really worked. Number 2, I wasn't a heavy fan of props. I never liked to use props in my speech. But what I did this year was during the semifinal speech where I did the Deadly Samba and the I See Something in Your speech, I used props. And for me, that enhanced my speech. It gave my speech a more visual and kinesthetic element that really enhanced what I was actually saying. And second, the third thing that I learned specifically during my journey this year is that make it about the audience. And more often than not, if I look at my past speaking career, I was trying to force a message down to the audience, a push approach, if you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, I structured my speech in a way that I had a pull approach, where the audience was getting pulled into my speech as opposed to me kind of thrusting down advice or kind of pushing content down to them. So those are 3 things that I've learned this year. That made me a better speaker.
So repetition, props, and allowing for a pull message instead of a push message. Yeah, it's funny you say that about props. I've never been a big fan of props. In 2007, I used a chair, and I didn't want to, but
right.
it ended up being okay. And outside of Toastmasters, I still to this day don't use props. But for those of you that haven't seen the speech or weren't there, Dananjaya starts his speech talking about how we're all like this rose, but then life happens to us basically, and we start to fall apart. And he picks apart the petals, and we end up sometimes getting thrown away into the trash. And he drops this rose into the trash, and then he doesn't deal with it at all. And you think it's all done, you think it's gone. And then at the very end, and this was just really a magic moment, I guess is what David would call it. David Brooks he said, you talk about, how you see something in people and the people that shape your life, and they all help you come back together. And then he reaches in the trash can and he pulls up a rose, and it's completely assembled. And so it becomes obvious that you had a rose in there the whole time. And then you had one in your hand, but it was really powerful the way that you did it. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, thanks, Rory. And the funny thing is, since I didnn do this consciously, but that rose is now like a brand. Everywhere I go now, people are saying, "Do you have a rose?"
Yeah, yeah. It's a part of your brand. It was just really special. And you pull it out and you say, and sometimes we can restore people. I mean, I don't remember because they don't release the recordings yet, and you'll be able to, anyone that's interested will be able to buy it online probably in a few weeks. But
Rory, the full speech is now out on YouTube. You guys can check it out.
Oh, it is.
Full version of that. Yeah, it is out. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll post it. I'll just post it on my blog, and then everybody will be able to see it right there, because it is
That's great.
awesome. It is so good. How do you create a pull message instead of a push message? What's the? I mean, I get that you're saying a push message is like you're pushing like a message onto people. You're kind of giving them advice. How do you create more of a pull message?
All right. So what I normally do is it has to do with how you construct the story. Now, there are two types of stories, right? A is where you become the hero of your story, where you're the hero of the story throughout. Generally, when you're the hero of your story throughout, it becomes a push message. But what I like to do in my stories and in all of my speeches is I play the role of the villain. Now, why I say I play the role of the villain is that, then it's about the audience kind of coming into the speech. They're trying to experiment. They're trying to figure out who this guy is. And it becomes more of like, I need to dissect this individual in the speech. So I normally start off either as the anti-hero or the failure in the speech. Because, as I always say, people connect in failure more than in success.
People connect.
So I normally... Yeah, so what I normally do is I take some time to explore failure. I make sure that I connect with my audience through my failures. And that really pulls the audience to me. But if I become the hero of my speech from the very beginning, what happens is then it's about, okay, I've done something really great and you guys need to now listen to me, go and do this. And that then becomes a push message.
I love that. People connect more through failure than they do through success. You're right. Because I've always heard, I think it's Craig Valentine who says, tell an I-focused story with a you-focused message, which is great. And that's no different than what you're saying here. But I always have interpreted that as talk about a time where you overcame something and then what you learned from it and then what the audience has. But what I hear you saying is just talk about your failure and just not how you overcame anything. And people go on that journey and they sort of empathize and they go along with you and they put themselves in the story and they cheer for you. And then I really like that, my man. So just one last question.
Sure, go ahead.
No, go for it. What were you going to say?
Well, if you look at my speech, I only have one line of success in it.
What is it?
It's just where I say today I am a dreamer and I'm a teacher. It's about how I messed up.
It's about how I messed up. So, last little question. After you win the World Championship of Public Speaking, what's next? What's next for Mr. Dananjaya Hettiarachchi?
Well, I've gone back to now a new beginning. That's what's really great about it. So my Toastmastering career has now ended. Now I'm in a new role. I'm in a new market, and my next thing is to just be a motivational speaker and an inspirational speaker for this part of the world. And I've got to now unlearn, literally, being a world champion and learn again how to, start from scratch and being a paid motivational, inspirational speaker and make this into a business model of success. So I'm back to square one. I'm learning again, and I'm looking to achieve my goal in the next 10 years.
Well, that's great. People connect more with failure than they do with success. He is definitely a successful guy. However, 2014 world champion of public speaking, Dananjaya Hettiarachchi. It's so good to be with you, man. Thanks for being on the show, and we'll post this interview, and we're gonna go find your championship speech, and we'll post this. So it's really good, and we wish you the best, my friend.
Thank you very much, Rory. I had a great time speaking to you, my friend.
Well, there you have it. You are hearing directly from the world champion. What a great story. And it's so cool that he won the first truly international, I guess, at least in terms of the convention being in the Eastern Hemisphere, on the other side of the planet, to have Dananjaya win is pretty exciting, and it's pretty awesome. And one of the things that's fun, we always love to celebrate the winner, and there's always so much attention that goes to the winner. But for me personally, my story, I've always had a lot of empathy for the people who didn't win, and particularly for the people who came in second or third, or who made it all the way to the top 10 and didn't win. And it was also bittersweet because Dananjaya's speech was so amazing and definitely deserving of the title. I had another good friend that was in the contest this year named Kwong, and Kwong's speech was good enough to win. And on most years, it probably does win. And yet he came in second. And it was such a bummer because I was so excited to be there in person and to think that I was going to get to see him, maybe live this big moment in his life, which of course it was huge. And it took me back to some of my own days, and I didn't get a chance to connect with Kwong before I left, but he's someone I really admire and I really love and I look up to, and I want the best. And I was thinking about my life, and I was thinking about what it was like to pour everything you have into something and make it all the way to that level, and then to come in second, or to come close, or just to just be there but not win. And I think there's an equally powerful and maybe even more powerful lesson in how you handle that, because hey, there's 33,000 people that entered into the contest, and Dananjaya is the only one that gets to go home with the trophy. And it's not a speaking lesson. It's a perspective lesson. It's something that applies to all of us in all these different areas of our life. And a lot of times people ask me, they say, "Hey, Rory, would you ever go back into the contest?" And to me, the answer is no. I wouldn't even think about it, unless for some reason I felt God leading me that way. But I can't imagine that He would. It's a chapter that's been closed in my life, and there's a very specific reason why. And it's not some cop-out about, hey, I don't want to do it or whatever. Here's what it really comes down to. And in fact, it's so relevant because it's the same thing I'm struggling with right now. And you might not realize this. It might seem stupid. In fact, it is kind of stupid, but we're launching another book. And even though you would think, well, hey, you've got this first book, Take the Stairs. It's in 11 foreign languages, and it's New York Times bestseller, and blah, 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 blah. And what is there to worry about? Well, there's a lot to worry about. There's a tremendous amount of pressure, if nothing from it, not anybody else, just from me, to want to do something that is equally successful and worthwhile and useful for people. And it's really easy to get caught up in all of the hype and the hoopla about a contest, or about your book or your company or your sales, and what did you do this month, and how many deals did you close, and what prizes did you win, and all of this stuff. And it's so easy to get caught up in that. And for me, one of the most valuable lessons that I learned, probably the most valuable lesson that I learned in the World Championship of Public Speaking, didn't have anything to do with speaking. I mean, certainly I learned a lot in the 2 years that I was competing at the World Championship in 2006, and then placing second in 2007 at the international finals. But the most powerful lesson to me was learning to have faith that there's a bigger plan that is at play. And there's this one prayer that we are commanded to make. And to me, it's the scariest prayer of all. And it's not the prayer that you make for something that you want. It's the prayer that you make for something that He wants. And that prayer is the prayer that God guides us, commands us to make. And that prayer is, "Thy will be done." Thy will be done. It's the scariest thing you can imagine. Right? That I would do everything in my power. I would try, and I would work, and I would fight, and I would hustle for the things that I care about, and for things that are worthy of recognition or achievement or excellence or success. But at the end of the day, I submit to the prayer, "Thy will be done." And that is a prayer of submission. That is a prayer of vulnerability. That's a prayer of trust. And the "Thy will be done" prayer, it is scary, but it perhaps is the prayer that most powerfully proves your faith. Because it's a prayer that we say that acknowledges that I don't know what is best for my own life, but I trust that you do. And so I'm going to put everything I have into something. I'm going to give it everything I've got. I'm going to lay it out on the line. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to work. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to fight. I'm going to push. And I'm going to dedicate my life in a worthy cause. And yet at the end of the day, if I've done my best and I have put everything I have into it, if it doesn't turn out the way that I would have had it planned to go, I still have the faith and the peace of mind to step back and say, that's okay. My prayer isn't that everything that I want to have happen in my life, that it actually happen in my life. That's not the prayer that we're commanded to make. We're advised to pray and ask, and you shall find. Seek, and the door will be opened for you. And so those desires in our heart are healthy and they are good, but they're not the overarching prayer. The overarching thing is thy will be done. And do you have the confidence and the peace and the perspective and the faith to really trust that whatever it is that you want most in your life, you go after it, but you still submit to thy will be done now, today, and forevermore, regardless of what that thing is for you.
Well, that wraps up Rory Vaden's show for this week. Folks, make sure you're connecting with me on Facebook and Twitter. Also, for more free insights and inspiration, make sure to visit roryvadenblog.com. I post a new article there almost every day. You can also get 4 free weeks of my Daily Discipline video online training. Register for a free call with one of our certified Southwestern Consulting sales and business coaches, or invite us into your office if you are a sales manager with a sales team, and we will send one of our consultants out to meet you face-to-face and do a free sales training for your team. So you can get links to all of that, plus lots of other great stuff, again, at roryvadenblog.com. Please stay tuned and join us for the next episode of The Rory Vaden Show. And until next time, remember that success is never owned, it is only rented, and the rent is due every day.
Do you love listening to Rory here each week? Do you know of any upcoming conferences where his Take the Stairs message would be a great fit? If you or someone you know is a part of planning events where you bring in outside speakers, please feel free to contact us at roryvaden.com. We'd love to get in touch with you and would send you and your team some valuable resources to help determine if Rory would be the right fit for you. Again, please visit us at roryvaden.com.